Hey guys, Berger here with MVP Paintball. Thanks a lot for joining us on this episode of Tech Tuesday. This week, I'm going to go over how to diagnose one of our customer repair guns. We get customers that bring us their repairs all the time. Sometimes they come in fully functioning, other times they're in a box, completely torn apart, and then we just go through and put them back together. For this one, normally we have a repair tag. I have the repair tag off screen just so that the customer's information's not out there. They brought it in. There's nothing on their repair tag telling me what's wrong with it, so I don't know. So we're gonna go over this in real time, how I diagnose a customer's repair for you guys. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave them down in the comments for us, or if you want to see me go over a particular gun, leave that down there as well. So all I know is that this is a Spider Imagine. It's an electronic marker. There are no screws in the ASA, so obviously that's an issue. For this, I'm going to need an Allen wrench, Phillips head screwdriver, possibly a plastic spoon. We'll get to this in a little while. I know it's kind of a weird thing to be in your toolkit, but we might need that. Some oil. Q-tips are always good to have on hand just in case you need to get into some little crevices and stuff. So given that this is an electronic marker, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to test to see if the board is functioning. If the board's not functioning, I'll call up the customer and see where they want to go with that. On older markers, sometimes it's not really worth it to try and find a new board. So they are missing a screw there. I believe I have some in our repair bin. And we have repair bins for each type of marker. So I've got a Spider one, I've got, an M2, even ions. So we got a bunch. All right, so the board doesn't look too bad. I don't see very much corrosion on there. Sometimes these are left in basements or garages and you end up getting a ton of corrosion in there, and sometimes you can take some denatured alcohol, rub all that off. One of the things that I'm going to look at is this piece right here. It's a resistor, and I'm not going to pull the board all the way out, but I'm going to bend this up just a little bit. This little cap right here, once these goes bad, they kind of bubble out a little bit, and you need to replace it. This one looks fine. This right here is the flapper. When you pull the trigger, that opens up and it releases the sear in there. So that's free moving, doesn't feel like it's bound or anything. You can see the sear right there. That's moving. So far that looks okay. So I'm going to take a 9-volt battery, attach it, and turn it on. So it lights up, that's good. Now when I pull the trigger, this should move back and forth. Yep, that looks good. It's a little bit loose, I can tighten that up later. There's little set screws that tighten that. So, all right, so we're good to go from there. Now, I have no idea if this gun leaks or not, but I'm going to bypass that and we're just going to open it up, see if it's missing anything. And for that, just use an Allen wrench. We're going to take off, we're not going to take off the grip yet. All right, so normally there's a cotter pin over there. I don't know if I can see this on camera. Normally there's a cotter pin in here. Somebody used a paper clip to hold this pin in place. So I think I have one of those in there as well. I'll replace that for the customer. Pull this pin out. This actually goes in there. You're taking this apart. Make sure that you hold everything, because if the spring's compressed, everything will pop out. All right, so there's no bumper back here. Sometimes when people put this back together, they'll put the bumper up front, which prevents your striker from hitting the valve. And there's no O-ring on the striker, so that's an issue. The gun won't work without it. So I'm just going to look down in here. All right, so it doesn't have a bumper at all. I don't know if I can get this on camera or not. Maybe you can see it down there, but there's no bumper. You can see the valve all the way down. So it's a good thing that it's not there. Sometimes it's kind of a pain to get off. All right, so I guess one of the first things we'll do is we'll inspect the O-rings, wipe off any of the old Old oil. Bolt's got some wear on there, both sides. So every once in a while, from moving back and forth on here, you'll end up with bolt wear, you'll end up with breech wear, and you'll see where it makes contact. Not a big deal. I don't feel any really rough edges on there. If there was, then I would just take a Dremel tool and a polishing wheel and just kind of smooth it down a little bit, but we're looking okay on that. Striker, what I'm looking at right here on the sear, or where the sear catches, this little lip, it's not too rounded over. Still a pretty sharp edge on there, so I think we're good there. Just grab an O-ring for this. You guys can't see it, but just out of camera view, I do have a repair kit over here. Put an O-ring on there. All right. And these O-rings don't look too bad. We'll get a bumper, because I know that we're going to need that for reassembly. I'm going to look down the breech. Looks pretty clean, actually. No paint residue. Yeah, no dirt, no grime. It's actually pretty good. Sorry. I dropped a nut. Keep your comments to yourself. All right. So we could take this all the way apart and take the valve out, but I think I'm going to put it back together just to make sure that it's not leaking first. There's really no sense in taking all of the valve apart, going by how these O-rings look. They don't look bad. So if I were to take the valve apart, I would unscrew right here. This comes out. There's a cup seal in here, and the valve sits in here. This little metal pin holds the valve in place so it doesn't go all the way back. The striker hits the valve pin, which is connected to the cup seal, opens it up, and that's actually what creates the airflow. The reason that I have a wooden spoon is you don't want to stick a screwdriver down there and damage the valve head. So you just use the end of the wooden spoon, you push it down, it'll remove the valve, and then you don't damage the inside or damage the valve itself. So that's why it's good to have a wooden or a plastic spoon. So I'm going to put this back together. We're going to give it a little bit of oil, just a drop on each O-ring. Kind of move it around all the metal, get it all over. And the reason that you're not really using lube on here, like a Dow 33 or something like that, is you need something a little bit thinner. You don't want it too sticky. These are just designed to have oil rather than one of the Dows. Now I don't have a battery in here, and I can't get this in further without releasing the sear. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to push the flapper valve forward, which moves the sear out of the way, lets me push that all the way in. Going like this, I can feel the resistance from the cup seal, so I know that there is a cup seal in there. Place that because it keeps coming out. I'm going to replace the bumper for them. Put this in, just kind of gently slide it in, hold that in place, take the pin, put it in. So this is what usually holds that pin in place so it doesn't pop out as you're playing. I don't know if the camera's going to be able to get that, but that goes through there, so we're going to get rid of the paper clip, replace this in there. So that's in there now. I am going to put a battery back in. And I am going to attach an air tank to this just to see if it leaks. I might test fire it on camera. I'm not positive if I'm going to or not, just because it is pretty loud. So I have an air tank. I'm just going to hold the ASA as I screw this in. And hopefully we don't hear any leaks. Right. So that leak is just coming from here. There used to be expansion chambers on here back in the day for running CO2 through them. I'm going to take this off. There's an O-ring on here. Sometimes that O-ring can go bad. Sometimes it just wasn't screwed in all the way. O-ring looks a little beat, so let's try replacing that one. All right, so I got an O-ring. It's right here. We're gonna put that on there. Put a little bit of oil on there. Rub it in. Screw this back in. You just need to hand tighten this. Most things on the markers, you don't need to really wrench down on anything. All right, so hopefully that fixed that leak. A little bit of a leak down here, but that's probably actually the tank O-ring. Yep, it's gone now. No leaks. So if the valve was leaking, if the valve O-rings were bad, you'd hear a leak out of here. If, right out of the trigger, because the valve sits here, the air would come out this way, and you'd hear it in your trigger frame. If the cup seal was leaking, which is the little nylon, I don't really know, it's just a circle connected to a pin. If the cup seal was leaking, you would hear it out the breech or out the tip of the barrel. If your steel braided hose was leaking, it would be somewhere on these fittings or up in here. That's really the only spots that's going to leak on you other than the O-ring I just replaced and out here, because right in here there's an O-ring. So I guess we'll test it. We'll make sure that it actually fires. Bear with me for a moment because it's going to get a little bit loud. So I turned it off, or turned it on, cocked it back, and hopefully we're good. Stuff's popping out of it. So we are good. So I'm going to turn it back on safe. And degas it. And it's normal when you degas this to get a little bit of air leakage out of there as you go. Set that there so it doesn't roll off the table. All right, so they are missing the screws for the ASA. I think I have a couple in here. 1, 2. And I think I have another grip screw. Yep. All right, so we are going to attach the ASA. And these fittings are designed so that you can rotate that and get it to fit where you need it to fit. So take this, stick it in, and I can tighten that up after I get it back onto the gun and get it where I need to be. And I have to hold this down because there is some tension on the line on this steel braided hose. And you want to make sure that you line these up properly. There we go. You saw it drop down a little bit. Just make sure that you don't cross thread. These you're going to hand tighten. You want to make sure you don't strip out those screws, hand tighten them. Just going to double check the frame screws, make sure that they're tight. Again, not wrenching down too tightly. Yeah, they were a little bit loose. Check that one. All right. Before I button this all up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the ball detent. That's this piece right here. I'm just going to double check that for them. Remove this screw. Then in here, there's going to be something that looks like a ball bearing. It's right here. A little bit of dirt behind there. There's a little spring that holds that in place so it doesn't pop out. It moves pretty freely, so I'm not gonna really do anything with it. It's fine the way that it is. Put that back in. Put the screw in. Tighten it down. Once again, just hand snug. Doesn't really need to be super tight on there. And because he had this off for a while, the screw was missing. You can see how this is kind of bowed. So it might take a little bit of effort to kind of straighten it back out a little bit. Doesn't really want to line up well. There we go. the other screw. So let's start to finish with teching the customer's gun. I will end up taking it out onto the field, chronographing it, make sure that the spring is right. Kind of hard to do that in here. We don't want to shoot up the walls. So I will chronograph it for the customer, let them know what it's shooting at, and hopefully it's good to go from there. Hopefully I taught you guys something. Hopefully you come back and check us out for our next video. Have a great day. Check, 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 check. Other times it'll come, it's like Bruce Almighty, the news scene. Okay, so we get customers that bring in